This, folks, is the first assault in what is likely to be a literal tidal wave of new EVs coming from the new Volkswagen Group. Oh, I know what you're saying. Porsche's Taycan is already terrorizing Teslas, and Audi's got a bunch of e-Trons about. But listen, our planet is not going to be saved by a whole bunch of playthings for the rich and superficial. If there indeed is going to be an electric revolution, then it will be cars like this, the ID.4, that provide practical transport for common everyday commuters. That will be the solution. So how does the Volkswagen's first real EV fare in the real world of everyday driving? Pretty darn well, thank you very much. Right off the bat, it just squeaks in under the $45,000 mark, by just $5,000 mind you. It also has what is, at this price, a fairly enormous battery, 82 kilowatt hours in fact. That big battery lets the ID.4 claim a fairly healthy 400 kilometers of range, says Natural Resources Canada. Now that might not sound like much compared with competitors like Tesla, but remember, the Germans take a more, let's call it cautious approach to range claims. Unlike the Teslas we've tested, for instance, the ID.4 managed to regularly average the 20 or so kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers in town required to hit that 400 kilometer rating. One time, even eking out a projected 421 kilometers. And on the highway, it managed 324 clicks at a steady 125 kilometers an hour. Just 30 clicks less than the Tesla 100D and its 20% larger battery. That's the good news. The bad news is that it only, in its initial guise at least, has 201 horsepower. Yup, the first ID.4s to arrive, all will be base models with one electric motor. Later on this summer, an all-wheel drive model that costs $5,000 more will arrive with another motor and boasting a more substantial 302 ponies. Good enough to lop a full 2 seconds off the base model's 8-second sprint to 100 kilometers an hour. There is some good news in this motor minimalism, however. The ID.4's electric motor is actually in the rear. Yep, unlike all its competition that are front drivers, the new ID.4 is a rear drive performance hatchback. And while that might not make it the ideal Canadian winter car, it sure does make it one fine handling German touring crossover. One might not go as far to label the ID.4 as sporty, but it is at the very least entertaining. And that's the reason most Tesla owners cite as justification for buying a Model 3 rather than its Chevrolet Bolt and Hyundai Kona competition. Another way that the ID.4 distinguishes itself is in styling. No, not the exterior, which looks very familiar in a Tiguanish kind of way. I'm talking about the interior, which in many ways takes Spartan minimalism to an extreme. For instance, the gauge set, which normally covers a substantial acreage on the dashboard, is a tiny little 5-inch screen mounted on the steering column. There's room for a speedometer, the gear selection indicator, and an infographic for the adaptive cruise control. I've seen more information packed onto a head-up display. What little switchgear there is minimalistic. The lighting for the mode switch, for instance, is so faint, it almost disappears into the center console. The ID is also so reductive that the 4 windows get but 2 switches, the driver needing to swipe a touch-sensitive button marked rear so that the front window switches can now control the rear windows. No, I don't see how that's simpler either. That said, much of the high-techery becomes normal in short order, and apps like the vehicle settings that monitor the battery state of charge and energy efficiency are well laid out. We really liked our time in the ID.4. Occasionally baffling, always fine handling. There's a liveliness to the Volkswagen that's not present in the other EVs that squeak under the $45,000 mark. For more electric car news and reviews, don't forget to check us out online and on Instagram and Twitter.